This is a very good painting in the sense it's a very good likeness. It's a self-portrait by Charles, and I wish that he had had a different lighting. I think this kind of flat lighting was done with a flash is very difficult to work with. It's really much better if you can have the kind of lighting that has light and shade shapes. Because with this type of lighting, you tend to overwork and model too much. So just quickly, I'm just going to do a very fast sketch. And the other thing that happens here is that if you have an almost front-on view, there is a tendency to pull right in directly into the front. This is actually almost a three-quarter view, but Charles has done very well with that. So what I would suggest to make sure that you know that he's not looking quite at you, just do a quick center line. And also there's a slight tilt. In other words, this right eye is a little lower than the left, so I would just do that. And I usually, when I do a mouth, I usually skip it across. Okay, I'm not going to do any more drawing than this. I'm just going to really draw with my brush, but what I really would like to do is get a first wash in, and that's cadmium red, and I generally could use yellow ochre, or I could use cadmium yellow. The initial color may seem too exciting, but it's going to dry it's going to lose intensity as well as value. Now generally the center of the face is your warmest section. Ears, this section right in here is your warmest part. And I'm just going to get a little bit more, because as I say, Charles is a little bit bland in the middle of the face. So a little bit more. Nose comes forward if I make it. Now I'm going to go and I shake my brush, and I'm going to go and get a little bit more cerulean and work it out a little bit and just work around the edges. Like so. He's got some hair over there. Actually, I think since that hair is, I'm going to paint out of this is actually the shadow side, and you don't really show the white of the hair, but I would over on this side. But here I can paint right out into the background. Okay, now I'm going to go backwards. You have to work quite quickly here because you don't want it to dry. So that is cerulean I'm adding down in here. You can see I just mix it out a little bit. And I can paint over this side, because I'm just going to call this the shadow side over in here. And I think I'll put a little background. I want to get a little bit warmer maybe, so I'm going to add a little ochre. I don't want a really dark background, but some blue and a little ochre, raw sienna. I'd like to pull out a little bit of the hair here, maybe a little ear. So here on the shadow side, on the light side, I'm sorry, is going to have a sort of a harder edge to find that hair. Okay, down. And you could, since he has a dark sweater on, I can go right into the sweater from the background, and maybe start making my color changes. And I think I'll just quickly get a little darker value in here. I'm going to have to redo this. This is going to have to be made darker when this dries. At this point, the value should look very close. What you're looking for is some color changes rather than value changes. So okay, let's let this dry now, and then I will find some of the features. Now, I'd like you to notice this is dried and how much lighter it's gone. So it's even though I've painted for years, I still, in this case, should have gone a little bit richer in the out in the lights, because I knew it was going to dry. But at least you'll see there's warmth and cool changes in here. So here we go. I'm going to use a smaller brush. This is a number 4. Okay, a little raw sienna, a raw umber maybe you could do a little bit, and a little blue. Okay, I'm just going to indicate an eye. This is going to be a very, 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 not a big finish, but I'm really trying to get a little bit of the color changes in here as well as some of the form and edge control. So when I do the eye, I'm just going to do it wet and wet. And I'm going to soften a little bit. And let's do a little bit of underneath the eye. Okay. Now we're going to soften over the top here. Now let's go into the nose. Now that's going to be, I'm going to have to add a little bit more color in here. And that's the underside, and then we'll go up and over. I'm going to paint this right up and over and start this bridge that I'm talking about. So let's do that again. I start underneath here, and that's bleeding a bit. And then I'm going to paint right up and over. That helps me get, now paint out toward the cheek. That's really what I wanted to show you, that this is the, I like to have all the action in the front of the face. Okay. Underneath here, we're going to have a cooler. And that's going to soften down toward the mouth, leaving a little bit. Now, I shouldn't have left that hard. You must remember to soften your edges as you go. Okay, now there's a shape on the side of the it's called the dental arch here. And that is a shape that goes right up, and that's more cerulean. This is the mix I'm using. Okay, we have quite a thin shape for the mouth. And let's go up there again. And a little bit, and I'm going to use some cadmium red in here for a little bit of the lip, but not make it too hard. Let's continue on. Under the, in the front, underneath the lower lip is going to be another cooler shape, and that can tie in with that. So you see there's really a lot of connections going on here. That can go up there. So I'm trying to kind of, in a sense, sculpt the face. Out. Let's hit that side plane with a little bit more. Now we're going to go down underneath the chin. The chin can be a little bit warmer. That was just a little cool. I'm going to try a little bit more of my red, and you could use a little raw sienna here, or I mean, you could use some raw umber, a little bit. I don't know quite how to handle this section down in here. It's difficult, but I'm going to leave these lights in here for the time being, and then maybe go a little bit out in here. Let's use some cooler color out there. That's, when I say cool, that's cerulean, basically. Okay, now we'll go back and hit the sweater a bit. And I'm going to do a little background shape up here. And that's Payne's gray, but I don't know if that was a great idea. That could be softer out there. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust that. I'm going to get the other eye in. Now, as this dries, I need a little bit more. A little bit there. Now for the nostril, don't use any blue. I would just maybe go a little, burnt sienna would work. And a little bit more shape in here. Now he's got, I think I'd emphasize a little bit more in here. And up and over. Okay, we've got some very pronounced eyebrows, and he's used a kind of a brown, but I think I'd go a little bit with some blue in there. Now the eyebrow kind of softens as it goes up and over. You see I hold my brush with the kind of the handle going in the direction that I'm painting. And that could soften out a bit. I think I said cool in the forehead, but I think I'm just going to go a little bit more up there. Now you wouldn't do this if it was still wet. Now I'll just do a little color for the hair. It's kind of a dry, brushy business. And you could pick out a little of the hair on the shadow side with some of this. Just almost any kind of a neutrally background here. That's just kind of like quite a lot of blue in there. Now these were too dark, weren't they? This one is a real, just an impression here. Just about getting there. I didn't solve underneath here. I wish Charles had used a better lighting in his photograph. Okay. That's about it. I think the main thing is I haven't gone as dark on the side planes as in the photograph. But I have tried to instead make it the color changes. So you see that goes from red in the cheeks, the midsection, into the cooler side planes here. And the other things I want you to do, I could hit the eyebrows a little bit. They're very pronounced. And I think you can see that it develops form using the warmer colors within it. So with the color, I can use fewer value changes. And it gives a little bit more of a, I think, a little bit of a more excitement. Okay, that's it. And actually, this was a very good job. I think especially he's done such a good job with his drawing and his likeness.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop and the book that accompanies this series are now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.